CEOs and salespeople are confident that their opinion is the right one. Are they? Welcome to the CEO and Salesman podcast, where we talk about today's business issues and we'll let you work out who's right. It's me, by the way. Well, welcome everybody. My name's Matthew and my colleague here is Daniel. How are you going, Daniel?
Hey Matt, great to see you again.
Good to be seen. Welcome to the third episode of the Salesman and the CEO, or the CEO and the Salesman podcast. You know, we've got to make sure the CEO's there first. So, hey, look, Daniel, I've really enjoyed our conversations. I've continued to enjoy our conversations, and this is a really interesting journey we're going on. But I believe you've actually got some feedback from our first episode you'd like to share with our, maybe one or two listeners we've got.
Yeah, that's right. It was my mum, I'm telling you.
Yeah,
no, it wasn't my mum. Yeah, no, it was really interesting. It was a friend and a colleague, and she was obviously supporting us. And it was a really interesting conversation that we had. And I felt though prompted to sort of, if you're listening, if you're the few people that are, thank you. I guess my opinions, because I do state them in such clear ways, they come from my experiences, and I don't claim to be an expert in anything. And what I'm really hoping to do is just share some wisdom, maybe, that you might get value out of. And I think I almost feel like it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. There are so many different types of companies out there. There's no one size fits all. And I haven't worked in all those type of companies. It's just software background. And so some of it may not apply, and that's okay. It is the point. But what I hope to achieve is that you can just learn a little bit from what we're talking about, or then have the debate yourselves internally about some of these things, because growing a company is really hard, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. So for many years, I've been of the opinion with growing a company that the only thing you really need to do is bring more sales in. And then as the business has grown, there's, and I'm still being the salesperson at heart, even though I do own and run my own businesses. I genuinely still believe that if we can just bring more money in, if we can make more sales, and a lot of things can be sold with more money.
I'd go and talk to all those really well-funded SaaS companies. Valuations are falling through the floor in the last 3 months. But yeah, I think, but that's an interesting crop top for another conversation. Growth, profitable growth, long-term growth, those sorts of things. There's all different types of growth. But,
exactly. No, we won't go into that. It's probably a whole other podcast. So. But actually, what I was talking with a customer this week, and they were talking about, their values, their mission, their vision, those types of things. And I just want to get your take on this. So, is vision and mission important?
Oh, wow. Let me say it this way. For me, it's critically important. And if I didn't have agreement on it, I wouldn't start the company or because it was my vision and mission, or take the role as a CEO if we didn't have agreement and mission. Let's say I was interviewing for a CEO role. The first thing I would do is review who that company is.
Yes.
And either paraphrase the current vision and mission to see if it was true for me, or reorientate the organization to see if the board would agree with me. Because the vision and the mission, in essence, is the statement from the stakeholders, being the shareholders and the board. This is who we are.
Yeah.
And if that is completely disregarded by the organization, something's going to go wrong. Yeah.
How do you bring that? How do you? A lot of the times, we walk into businesses and we see that their mission statement or their vision is on a nice framed thing in the entrance. Seems to be a lot of dust on those sort of our values conversations. So is that, how do you bring that up and how do you implement that? How does that live inside your business?
All the time. So to me, a vision and a mission statement is the foundation of every decision you make. It's not about what are you going to do, because you've already got a strategic plan behind that vision and mission statement. It's about what you're not going to do. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're, it's like fun. I'm going to use Uber as an example, and they're going to completely disprove everything I've just said, right? But if your vision is to provide the number one share car service and reduce the costs in the world, and all of a sudden you start developing driverless cars, which they do, I wonder how those two things can coexist in the one company, because their whole thing was about helping people unlock the value of their car and use that in a way to help other people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they've got this other thing that they're doing, which is completely going to destroy the value of their drivers. And so, and obviously I have no idea what's going on if the company's quite big, but I've always found that interesting. And that's what I mean by, if you're very clear on your vision, the answer would be no, we're not doing that.
Yep.
Or change your vision.
Yeah. And so how do you engage with your team about that?
So in our management huddles with the leadership, small leadership team, if we have a decision coming up and we're trying to work out whether we should be doing it or not, somebody will say, well, does that fit our mission and vision? That happens in the board meeting as well. People throw around ideas all the time. And if you can't actually come to an agreement, the easiest place to go to, does that fit within our vision and mission? Because if it doesn't, move on, right? Or as I said, change the vision and mission. Now with the broader team, I have a responsibility to be advertising it all the time, aligning our messages, making sure everybody understands it, encouraging, because they're maybe not making the strategic decision. But you mentioned values in the question, though, Matt.
Yes.
And I think your values need to align with your vision and mission, the type of company you are. And then that personal behavior needs to be reinforced and called out. So in our team meetings, we do high fives. Hey, Matt, here's a high five, and I'd like to call you out for showing the level of integrity you showed in the sale last week, and I made that up for everybody. But that's what we do. I ask team members to actually, hey, recognize other people in the team. That's the first thing, like if they've done well, and see if you can call out the value that they've demonstrated within the organization. Yeah. So that's kind of how we do it, mate. Oh, you've got experience with this. What do you do?
Well, what's interesting is that my first company back when I was 22, so there was a very different Matthew Wyatt moving around the world at that point, and really there was no vision or mission. There was our job was to make money and sell more to people. But then we had values, and we wouldn't do certain things. We sold so we sold a software package to somebody who was woefully unqualified. The salesperson came to me and said, "Oh, this is the person's situation. I won't go into it." And so I got into the middle of the sales room, and I phoned that customer, and I offered them a refund based on, and it was, we're a sales driven organization. We're only, and I would stand in front of the entire business of 30 people and say, we're a sales and marketing organization. Everything lines up behind sales and marketing. If you're not helping me get a sale, you're not interesting to me. And that was pretty shocking for programmers and finance people. But what I would then go and have a conversation with those programmers and finance people and saying, how you can help make a sale is by building in better software and more user-friendly software. And finance people, how do we free up more capital? How do we do this? So everything was aligned towards making the next sale. So me coming into the sales room and saying and offering a refund was probably shocking. But when I did that, it aligned the values that I held, that I wasn't here to rip anybody off or be so good at selling, or my team be so good at selling, is that they overcome the person's actual needs and sort of ran over the top of them. So in my first business, it was actually more of a values-led organization where we had conversations, and I would have those conversations. I would values where I always backed up my team. So if there was ever an aggressive or an upset customer, I would actually call that customer and back my team. I heard Richard Branson say at one stage that he looks after his team and his team looks after the customer. The customer is not first for him. So, and that's how I always operated. My team has always been the first person or the first people that I deal with, and then then those people deal with the customer. So I never really had vision and mission. I felt that back in the day, because I was reasonably commercially driven, I felt a bit like it was put upon. Having said that, now as time has come through, and this is a business started in 1999, different world. now we're having more conversations about that, what we're trying to achieve in the marketplace. And really, I talk about our why to our with our team. We talk, in my I have 2 weekly meetings. We have a stand-up and a projects meeting. In that project conversation, I'm always asking, how do we serve the customer better to get the result that they want? Because it's very easy in my business, being marketing, to say, well, we're going to do this, I don't know, LinkedIn thing or chatbot thing or website thing. These are all the things that we do around the business. But at the end of the day, does this serve the customer? Does this put the result in the customer's hands that they want? And then we need to understand what the customer values. And it's a whole other conversation. I want to talk to you about that in just a moment. So does that answer your question?
I think it's an awesome story because it reminded me of something else. Because the question, vision and mission and values, and that's all ideally, that's part of your strategic plan, right? But
Yes.
they are doing different things. Your vision and mission is helping you decide which direction you want to run. And of course, you can run in a direction without having a vision and mission. You could just say, hey, there's a shiny car over there, I'm going to go after it, right?
Yep.
Well, what you're reminding me of something I read many, many years ago. So that's strategy, right? Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Right?
Yes.
It completely does. You could have the best strategy in the world, but if a poor culture, it's going to fail. You got to have a big A strategy and have a great culture, and you'll succeed. It's as simple as that. And what values does, it creates cohesion and culture, which is what you did, Matt.
Yep.
Right. You had such a strong set of values that you shared with people, and that culture created the success. And it wasn't so much the vision and mission. I would also think you probably didn't actually have a lack of vision and mission. You had some idea of what you were doing. You just didn't make it a priority. Yeah. But I think when you have those things together, it's very powerful.
Yeah. I really like your idea about, and it's been in a 1-page strategic plan that I haven't implemented. But in the 1-page strategic plan, it's about making sure that one of the things that I've seen work quite well, and you've just reminded me, and I might actually have to go and revisit it, is, what are the values of the organization, and then recognizing people who step into those values. Because what I know in business is what gets recognized gets repeated, and what gets repeated gets baked in deep.
Yeah, and, so, and I've unfortunately, because I've had hundreds of customers, and not all of them. I love all my customers, but they're not being great places to work. I've seen companies weaponize their values. Like, you are not doing this, right? And I find that toxic.
Yes.
And where the values, you want to encourage behavior, the behavior of people, and that's what a good set of values will do for you. I think it also needs to be said, you can have bad visions and missions and value statements. Like some organizations just write them, as you say, put them in a drawer. Yep. And they're still successful.
They are.
Yeah, but the finance industry comes to mind anyway.
I just, one thing you were talking about is having people weaponize their values, or you're not doing this. And one thing I see in places that people weaponize certain behaviors they want to see is actually putting check marks into CRMs, and you're a bit of an expert in the CRM world. And one of the things that often comes to me is, where we need to put more activity into the sales. And what I'm seeing is that sales is becoming, and I'm not saying that there are businesses out there that aren't successful at managing activity. And I've fallen victim to make more calls and you'll make more sales. Well, that's correct up until a point in which you then get diminishing returns of, I'm now just a phone jockey who's usually make 1,000 phone calls in a week. So I want to talk to you about, how much data needs to go into a CRM. What's the importance of a CRM, and how do we measure or balance the fact that sales is more of a performance art than an activity box checking process?
Yeah, wow, that's a massive question, and I'm glad we talked about it before this session so I could prepare. But, yeah, that is a massive question, and I'll start with some interesting information that I read recently. Back in 2017, CIO magazine published a stat that 50% of CRM projects were failing, right? Which is high, but in this industry, ERP and CRM, and they didn't give a definition of failure. either.
Yes.
But what was more interesting, when they surveyed, not when HBR, Harvard Business Review, actually surveyed executives, the stat was 90%.
Wow.
From the executive's perspective, the CRM project had failed because their expectation of the project was completely different to what was implemented. Yeah, isn't it amazing?
Look, that's fascinating because, okay, so what happened is so how it occurs to me is somebody bought a CRM and then it left probably, circling all the way back, tying it up in a bow. What's the vision for this? What are we valuing from this implementation?
Yeah.
And then it sort of drifts off into engineering and other areas, and they start getting caught in the weeds, right?
And it's a common story in software. And so the expected outcome of the project was never achieved. They're using it, their reporting's improved, things have gone live. And the thing about CRM, it's one of the few applications where you put hand on heart and say, an investment in CRM will grow your company. All right. And that's what an executive is looking for, growth.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
But it's software. How's software going to grow your company, Matt? It just can't. It's the people using the software that's going to grow your company.
I'm sorry, so but that new Makita tool that I bought from Bunnings does not make me a tradesman in any way, shape, or form.
No, that's exactly right. And I've been in so many workshops where we start with, what do you want the CRM to do? So I'm even guilty of it. I'm an IT guy.
Yep.
Because it's so flexible when the question needs to be at the salesperson's level. Because what happens is the company goes, here are the requirements, then we implement it and we tell the salespeople how to use it. Yep. Why do you think the adoption rate is so low? These are salespeople we're talking about, right? So really the very first meeting is your CEO wants to grow the company. What does that mean to you, Mr. Salesperson? And the answer will be make more sales. Okay, let's start with that.
Yep.
How are we going to help you make more sales? And there are many different answers to that based on many different company types. It has nothing to do with the data you're entering.
Can I tell you a quick CRM failure story from my own experience? So back many years ago, we were looking at going from an on-premise to an in-cloud, and there was a new player in town called Salesforce. And so we invited the Salesforce rep to come into our office. We had about, pardon?
Just a small little company called Salesforce.
Well, that's right, And so we invited the rep in, and we're sitting at the board table. And anyway, I won't tell you the whole story because it's a long one. But essentially, we got Salesforce, broke their brains because we sold to customers and they only had it built for businesses. So we did about $70,000 or $80,000 worth of customization. So it would do the job that we wanted it to do. We didn't want accounts and contacts, that type of thing. You're reasonably familiar, I'm sure. And then about a month in, we had the training person come into the office. We did all this sort of stuff. Saturdays were taken up, evenings were done, pizzas were bought, a whole bunch of effort had been done. And about 2 months after we implemented it, I went to one of my most successful sales reps and said, okay, what do we got coming in this month? And how's it looking? To tell me. And I'm expecting him to go, because we bought them all computers, because before that we had very basic connections, so all new stuff, hundreds of thousands of dollars spent. And he goes, oh, just a second. Brings out his lever arch file and goes exactly like this. He goes, this one's buying. And I don't have much hair now, but I just had to walk out. I had to take a moment, breathe. I thought, this is a couple of $100,000 here down the toilet, and went back and said, what the disconnect was there is we weren't able to connect. And it's my fault because, I own the company. My fault. We didn't connect the activity of working in the CRM and him making his money. And the only thing that was important to him is him making his money and making that sales and providing that value to the customer. So
in fact, Salesforce created the worldwide meme. If it's not in Salesforce, it doesn't exist, right? That was to deal with that exact thing you talked about.
Yep.
But also, I would characterize early CRM projects as digitalization projects rather than CRM projects.
Yes.
Because these days, you won't need a rep that's not entering data into apps using To-Do on their phone. So everybody, very rare do you find a rep that's completely a Luddite and doesn't want to use the system. But I find it's not, but the focus is still wrong. It's still on digitization today. which we don't need to do that anymore. We need to focus on process, workflow, and support of the rep, and clear execution of vision. And the number of teams that I've actually asked the question to, how do we increase your sales? It's not about the CRM, it's about leads.
Yep.
And
about
no
leads.
CRM, there are so few CRM projects I've worked on where you include marketing automation as part of the scope.
Yep.
So you're having this CRM project which goes, we're going to increase your sales, and then you're not dealing with leads, right? It's just, it's insane almost. And that's just an old arbitrary delineation between disciplines, right? But you know, we're both ABM advocates, so
That's right.
Delineation. So that's a fascinating question. If we could bottle the answer, we won't have to run this podcast anymore, Matt. We do very well.
Buy the Kool-Aid and drink it. So
that's right. Yeah.
But what I want any business leader out there, I think that what I'd really like to have them understand is that you can measure you can be a Monday morning expert about sales. You got these deals coming in. One of the great challenges that I see is they say, well, what's the percentage, or, you know, those types of answers. But thinking about the psychology of a salesperson is that if the salesperson doesn't believe that the deal will close, they'll probably make less effort. So the salesperson needs to, in their heart, believe the deal's going to close, even though statistically,
right?
Beg your pardon?
Almost lie to themselves, right? They have to be, yeah.
I mean, why would somebody show up to the if we're using
Zoom,
any team sport? Imagine the State of Origin, and the Maroons went into it saying, well, you know, the bookie's saying we're $4, so guess we're not going to win, or there's a 1 in 25, there's a 25% chance of us winning. This is what we're asking salespeople to do every day. And if you actually want them to go, well, there's a 25% chance of me getting this deal across the line, heartbreaking. And you're going to give you might give a 100% performance, but if you don't think you're going to win, you're probably not going to do it. And so,
you know what, I've done so many stats in sales conversions. Until you just said that, I'd never really thought about it that way, man. Yeah, that's fascinating. Because as a rep, you're exactly right. You're going to focus on those deals you think you're going to win. That's just human psychology, isn't it?
Have to.
Yeah.
I believe every customer that's going to buy from me, and then when I'm a salesperson, I believe them. I have to. But then I go, and I'm now the owner of my company, and I have, you know, 8 staff to work with. Am I going to start ramping up? You know, if I've got 5 prospects in the pipeline, am I going to start ramping up delivery because I'm going to get 5 sales? Well, no, I have to then look at it statistically, and actually, it takes a whole different conversation. And my question is to myself, and this might help other owner operators who are selling, is how many of these types of deals would I need? How many of these types of conversations would I need to make a sale? So one of my business partners one of my interests I have is in capital raising. We're looking at doing a really giant deal at the moment. And, you know, my wife says, oh, how's that looking? I said, oh, really good. And then, of course, I switch hats and go, I'd probably need to have 5 conversations at this level to bank the money, emotionally bank the money. So what does that mean? So statistically, it's now a much, much lower than I'm definitely getting this deal.
You know, you've just, my brain's just exploded with the whole of the past conversations that I've had that I've realized haven't been effective. A lot of companies align stats with stage. So from this stage, we close 30% of deals. From this stage, we do 50% and so on, which is an interesting way to do it. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. But it's not saying that I've only got a 30% chance of winning.
No.
To the rep. And that's the mistake I think I've made. I said, hey, you've got 3 deals in front of you. I'm only going to count you for 1. So which 2 deals does he stop working on? That's the crazy part of that conversation. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. We want to win all 3, but we know that we're not in control. I mean, so the greatest salesperson in the world is not going to be in control unless you're bullying people and you're a Jordan Belfort and mentally and emotionally manipulating people. And even then, you still can't force people to hand over their credit card unless unless you've really manipulated them, and that's going to create C-class clients, and C-class clients are going to be really awful in your customer service, and it is going to be a drain on the business.
So Matt, if it's not about percentages, what is it about then?
Oof. What is it about?
Because you run your business, you have to forecast, right? I have to forecast too.
Yep.
So what is it about?
This is going to sound like the opposite thing of what a salesperson would say. Mechanics. It's about actually procedure, and it's about knowing that if you do win all three, there is a machine in place that allows you to absorb all three, knowing and having flexibility in that machine. And so in my business, how I deal with that is we have compartmentalized work packages. So well, if somebody needs to do the Facebook or the LinkedIn or the content, we know who can do that, and we have a roster of people that are available. We have our core team, and we have contractors, and those contractors can step up. So it's process. And every time we do something in our business that is new, we document that. We then think about that and go, well, how could this have been done better? And we plan the next step on how we execute on it. So, for example, we did the case studies the other 6 months ago, and we were doing quite a few. If we were to do a case study perfectly, and we were to write a document teaching other people how to do case studies, what would we put in it? And we came up with all the tasks and steps and processes that occur inside that. Then we published that as an internal document. And then I said, well, let's justify this to ourselves, make sure we're really not just, drinking our own Kool-Aid. And then I put some graphic design around it. And now that's actually, funnily enough, become a lead magnet. And I put that out there. If people want to download how to do a great case study, they can go to my website and download it, or they can just message and we'll send it to them. And so
the
answer is
great
process.
Yeah, because that's a great journey into ops. But you've got, even for one of your customers, though, if they ask you this question, if you're not going to ask me to get stat like 10%, 20%, 30%, 80% confident at the deal, how do we determine a sales forecast? Because a sales forecast is a really important thing to do. Yeah. And look, sorry.
So you listen and understand that the salespeople need to believe what it is. And then you, as the business owner, or me as the business owner, needs to step away from the sales function and go, what do the numbers tell us? What do the stats tell us? And we just don't need to burden the salesperson with, you're not going to lose 2 of those 3 deals. There are statistics there, but you need to build them on reality.
Yeah. I think what's happened is the stat of closing rates, which you put into your forecasting weighted averages and stuff, is meant to be informed by your trend, but very few companies actually do that discipline.
Oh,
right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so I think maybe, I think to close this question off, and it depends what type of company it is, it's really your trends that inform your closing.
Yep.
Rather than any type of sitting down, hey Matt, how confident are you with this deal? Are you 70% or 80%? Because quite frankly, I can't tell the difference between 70 and 80%. It's a one more extra call, So that's a fascinating conversation, and hopefully our listeners got some value out of it. I don't think we gave any easy answers there, because
there aren't any, because sales is not an activity. Well, you can build activity, and you've got to build process, and you've got to make sure you've got your scripts and your mechanics right, because I am never at 100%. I'm not always at 100% all the time. So I need I work from home, the Amazon dude shows up, or my mum needs a phone call at some stage, or whatever it might be. And then I'm expected to jump on a sales call and be the best I can be. How do I do that? Well, I do that by having a sales process. I've been selling for 25 years, actually probably longer. My first sales job was selling vacuum cleaners door to door when I was 17. So that's a whole other thing. But I know people actually did that, right? But I've got my sales script on my screen, and I don't read it, but it's touchstones, it's stages, because this is the best version of our business. And how do we serve the customer at the highest level? Understand, because I know we're sort of going a bit long here, but understanding that what the customer values is your key to selling. And the only way to do that is by asking incredibly direct questions.
Yeah, I think and I think this might be the other conversation, maybe for next podcast. Getting back to CRM projects, the other real reason they don't go very well, there's no defined sales methodology in the organization.
Yep.
And without a sales methodology, you don't have a sales culture, right? Because what gives you your sales methodology culture is your sales methodology. And they know what an M1 is. They know what a demo is. Everybody understands the language, and we need to have that commonality in the CRM as well. This has the danger of going on all day, this topic. Yeah.
One thing I do say to every single client is everybody from the cleaner to the CEO needs to understand how the business makes money and how the product is sold and the value that the product brings to the customer.
Mm.
The value, not what we do. We sell CRMs or we sell marketing. We help X to do Y through Z. Everybody needs to understand that. And so maybe that's a challenge for the listeners today, listener, maybe singular. But hi, Daniel's mum. But it's, can you articulate how we do X? So we help X to do Y through Z. We help companies to achieve this through this. And if they can do that.
I've got an easier question. I fell off my chair. We've got a very small sales and marketing team. And I said, what's our value prop? And I got silence. Then I went to our services team, which I got, dozens of people. I said, what's our value proposition? And I got crickets again. And so we are going through a value prop training exercise at the moment, exactly as for what you just said, Matt. It's and the guys work really hard. Our customers love us.
Yeah.
And that's our value prop, quite frankly. Our customers love the team, right? Yeah. I was part of the value prop, but it's exactly what you're saying, though. Everybody needs to understand why we are successful so they can continue to do that, basically. So that's a really good one, man.
Very good. Hey, Matt, I really enjoyed our conversation. And anybody listening today or over these conversations, we'd love to hear feedback. If somebody says, hey, you guys are, you're talking about ABM or account-based marketing too much and we don't do that, or that's not relevant, or, vision and mission is complete palaver. We're just out here to make money or sell more cars or sell more CRMs or whatever it might be. That's great. That's what we want to hear. We want to have those conversations. This is not us providing the tablets of wisdom from the mountain. This is us this is a couple of business owners who love each other's company, talking about things. So, let us know, and I'd love to have somebody actually argue with us.
Well said, Matt. Except if you don't believe in vision and mission, listen to somebody else. We will never change our opinion.
That's right.
I'm telling our listeners before we even let them know.
That's it. Exactly.
All right, very good.
Perfect. Thanks again, Daniel. Talk to you soon. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to the CEO and Salesman podcast. If you've got a leadership, sales, or business question, we'd love to hear it. And of course, we'd also love to add our 2 cents on the subject. Tune in for next week where we talk about all these things and more. Bye for now.